Heather Carey is a culinary nutritionist and she's the founder of Green Palette Kitchen. And she also has a great podcast called Real Food Stories, where she calls out our relationships with food so we, as she puts it, can make peace with what we eat and get on with the real food and lives we deserve. When I met Heather, I was drawn to her deep experience and also the fact that she goes to science to back up how she works with clients. And as an engineer, I respect that. A lot of my work revolves around my clients' life transitions. And the conversation that you'll hear today is partly related to that and also partly related to how to ease our meal times, regardless of what phase of life that we're in. She gives me some tips about what to stock in our pantries and also about how she approaches meal planning. I think you'll find her ideas to be unfussy and realistic, much like I like to be in my own home. Enjoy the episode. So, Heather, the source of our food has become a topic that incites, at the best, confusion, and at worst, fear and anger in people. Are you worried about things like pesticides, GMOs, microplastics, nutrient declines in our produce and things like that? And should we be looking at the source of our food at the grocery store before we buy it?
Yeah, that's a great question because when you put it that way, it seems like there's so much to worry about. And where are we getting real good food? And like what's safe to eat anymore and what's not? What should we stay away from? I think the first thing you want to try to just stay off of the internet and like look at those wellness influencers who are just saying that seed oils are bad or microplastics in our food, and because there is a lot of alarmism in our food culture, and you really want to stick with well-studied scientific information. So seed oils, like I just said, are a great example. I mean, that seed oils right now, everyone is in fear of anything with a seed in it.
Right.
And
right.
the reality and from how they have been well studied is that seed oils are perfectly safe and actually really beneficial for heart health. So we don't have to fear seed oils. I mean, things like microplastics, how I see it is that there's not a ton you can do. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's maybe go back to basics. And if we could all grow our own food a little bit, even if it's a little garden in our backyard, even some herbs, and that would be the ideal, right? Then you're not using pesticides, nothing's wrapped up in a package and plastic, and you're picking it right out of your garden. I mean, I love that. I have a big garden myself. I'm in Connecticut, so I don't have the opportunity to garden all year round, but that would be the ideal. But there's just a lot that we can't. I mean, microplastics are in everything. Everything. It's impossible to avoid them. So I think we just have to do our best, really, but stick with science. I mean, stick with trusted websites and trusted people who have really good, credible information, I think is your best first step.
Well, the other thing that is in the news a lot right now is perimenopause and menopause. I'm getting a lot of attention, especially because it feels like shamefully little research that's been done on essentially a natural life transition for every woman on the planet. But as women become more aware, they may want to adjust how they eat. And at the same time, when they also have kids to feed, a family to feed, meals can become a little difficult. Do we now have to plan different meals for ourselves versus our children? How do we make this shift in how we eat in our households and not make it complicated and super time consuming?
So great questions. I mean, let's start with perimenopause and menopause, because if there's any subject that I see as so incredibly confusing right now, it is the menopause space. There really is no specific menopause diet, because, for, I think a lot of women, the fear of gaining weight, because we all think like we're going into menopause. And so that means an automatic 10 pounds that we're going to gain around our belly. and how are we going to, deal with that? And I hear so much from women, I just look at food and I gain weight. I get it. I mean, I am in menopause right now and I can feel my body shifting, and I know a lot about food. So it gets really confusing. But I think the bottom line is that, we can't go into like desperation mode at this time. We still have to really focus on eating the very best that we can. Menopause itself brings up a lot of, like when you have a dip in estrogen like this, and you're not on hormone therapy, which is a personal choice, your bones get affected. So it's not just hot flashes and night sweats. It's your bones, your heart, your brain. I mean, that dip in estrogen affects so much. So we want to just really double down at this time of our lives and make sure that we're eating as well as possible. So, you said, like, do I have to go on a special diet now? And like, I have kids at home, and do they have to eat differently than me? I mean, not really. We should all be eating, like a mostly plant-based diet full of whole grains and healthy proteins, plant-based proteins, tons of fruits and vegetables, healthy fats. I mean, that's really what we need to be focusing on. Now, women, though, it's not so much the menopause that contributes to this like redistribution in your weight or some weight gain. It's really just the fact that we are getting older. And so this applies to men too. So when we get older, we have a dip in our metabolism. We are starting to lose some muscle, and so we want to focus as women in midlife, like women in menopause and midlife, on really maintaining our muscle. And because muscle then raises your metabolism. So strength training is one of the number one best ways to help maintain your weight. So if you haven't been lifting weights yet, this is a great time to start. So, I mean, and, still, be doing cardio and everything, but this is not the time that we can, because we're getting older, we like exercise less,
That's a great way of putting it. And again, you mentioned it when we were talking about food sources. It's not to be alarmist about these things. It's a natural aging. I like looking at it that way, that if we're eating well and we're continuing to eat well throughout our lives, the diet at menopause or perimenopause doesn't have to change, but your habits probably have to change a little bit around movement, around exercise, if that's not a habitual thing that you're doing. Is that what you're saying in essence?
Yes. I mean, we might, right. I think the one thing you want to definitely concentrate on adding in is strength training. That's number one. And then if you have spent the last couple decades having happy hour every weekend, like your weekends are full, like with alcohol and like, and, partying, these are habits we might want to start really taking a hard look at, because it's empty calories. It's the connection between health related issues and lifestyle are just big, and they just become more magnified when we are in like this perimenopause, menopause stage. So your kids don't have to necessarily eat, like they get to eat like this kind of certain way, and you have to eat like, diet food. It doesn't have to be that way, right? I mean, you can all be eating the same things. Yes.
And maybe they have a dessert that I don't necessarily have. That's okay too.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
You've had your own struggles with weight loss. Yeah. Would you share what you went through?
Yeah, I'm a clinical nutritionist and a health supportive food chef. And I definitely struggled with my weight really my whole life. I mean, in my, my teens and then, 20s, I grew up in a household where going on a diet by the time you were about like 11, 12 years old was totally standard. And, all the women were on diets then. And so that's how I was just programmed. Like, you were on a diet, you were off the diet, you were losing weight, you were gaining weight, you were hating yourself, liking yourself. I mean, it was just so, I went through just, years and years of that. And I think by the time I had my kids, I had twins. I gained a lot of weight with my twins.
Oh boy.
I lost it. I had another one like pretty close behind. And then, after that, I couldn't really blame it on like the baby weight anymore. But I think, what was going on and what I think the difference is that I spent decades beating myself up for my body, like just, right, like hating my body, kind of, even though I knew how to lose weight. I knew it because I have a master's degree in clinical nutrition. I know how to like count the fat grams and everything and do all that. But I think I finally came around and realized that the key to losing weight is to not so much have that like strict diet where like, tracking food, counting calories is all useful information. But the key to losing weight and keeping it off is to have a whole lot of kindness and self-compassion for yourself. You have to be your biggest cheerleader when you are deciding to do something as difficult as losing weight, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It takes a lot of mindset, right? It takes like a lot of like, you have to stay consistent with it, and you have to create a goal, and you have to figure out, why do you really want this? Because for me at that point in, like my early 40s, getting into a bathing suit was like a fun goal to have, but not like a long-term reason for wanting to lose weight. Because once I did this, I wanted to do it. And I did not want to have to gain the weight back. Having a why behind your reason for losing weight is key to everything. And then having a lot of kindness, patience, and compassion for yourself while you're doing it. So, for example, my why was, my father died really young. He was in his 40s when he passed away. And here I was approaching that age. And now that I had kids, I felt so strongly that I didn't want to be responsible for a health issue that I might cause myself. Diabetes, heart disease, all those lifestyle diseases that come from what you eat and your weight. And that was my why. That kind of gave me like the motivation, even when like things felt kind of hard. But then also I think that kindness and compassion and really just being your own cheerleader is the key to everything when you want to lose weight.
You've mentioned that you have some, what's the word you use? Some odd or unexpected tools and habits for weight loss. And is that one of them, having kindness for yourself?
Well, I don't think it's a talked about tool for weight loss, right? When you like go on the internet or like go look up whatever latest diet is, or the keto diet or the carnivore diet or whatever diet is of the moment. I am no fan of diets because they don't have that. They tell you what to do, they tell you how to do it, and then they leave you on your own. Anyone, you can go on any diet and lose weight. You're going to lose weight if you follow the diet. And then what? Are you going to stay on keto for the rest of your life? Seriously, it's like such a difficult diet to try to maintain. And you've lost the weight, and then you can't maintain the diet because it's impossible. And so then you start slowly gaining the weight back, and you can't figure out why. And then you are now beating yourself up again. And you're like, why? I don't have the discipline, the motivation, and that's not it at all. Right. It's hard to be in menopause. It's hard. Especially, and if you've been dieting your whole life and maintaining a certain like weight, and then your body starts shifting, it can be a difficult change. For a lot of women.
So what are some of the habits that you recommend to people who are trying to not only lose weight, but then keep it off? What would you recommend?
I think probably the number one habit is to just be very mindful. Mindfulness, we're mindless eaters. We're sitting on Facebook, and we're watching TV with our computer open at the same time, and we're grabbing a snack, and we're not even aware that we've walked into the kitchen, and we come back, and we're you know what I'm saying, right? There's just right, a lot of things happening and swirling around us at all the time. So mindfulness, staying mindful, staying very aware of what you're eating and paying attention to your food is definitely, after kindness, compassion, mindfulness is right there. Is that you have to stay mindful. You have to realize when you are hungry, physically hungry, and realize when you are physically full enough. That's like the very short version, but that's how you do it without staying on a diet. You have to be really tuned in to your body. And a lot of us aren't tuned into our bodies. We're just eating on autopilot, or we're eating for a lot of emotional reasons, or we're bored, or we're having a bad day, or we're tired, or right. Those are not good reasons to open up a pint of ice cream or make a very mindful decision to do it. I want the ice cream. I'm going to, I'm going to have it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy it fully. Right.
Eating ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than I'm eating a pint of ice cream. I just ate a pint of ice cream and what just happened?
Some of that I have to believe, and tell me if you don't feel that's the case. We've evolved into a society, in the US especially, where we're doing a lot of our work sitting stationary, and our neighborhoods aren't always set up for us needing to walk someplace to get our daily stuff done. Walking for exercise is something else, but having to walk to the store, to our jobs, to pick up our kids, we're not always living close enough to those places to be able to do that. Is that some of the reasons maybe that we were in this position now? And also, I have to believe, at least in my case, meals have become a lot more accessible in a more convenient way. So much so that cooking myself from scratch is less necessary because stuff is available. So I can literally assemble a meal without having to cook something from scratch. And taking out that necessity of picking the vegetables, washing them, filtering them for pieces I need to throw away, that kind of thing. Those manual things that we have to do that make us more conscious about what we're cooking, what we're eating, we don't need to do that as much anymore. Do you think that's also contributed to the way that we eat?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's all such good points. I mean, we don't need to be doing it for convenience, but we need to be doing it. I mean, we do for our health. And you could call Uber Eats now. And I mean, I've always said to like my clients, I'm like, if you want something sweet, like cookies, ice cream, get in your car and go make it like an outing, go to the ice cream store, get your scoop of ice cream, your ice cream
social
cone.
outing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And make it like a thing, like make it a little hard to get to it.
Right.
And now all you have to do is call Uber Eats. You can have a pint of ice cream sent to you. I mean, you could,
at your door.
Yeah. I mean, anything could get delivered to your door in 2 seconds.
Oh, yes.
And and so that makes it all very convenient and good, but that definitely takes out the mindful component of eating, cooking, getting in your kitchen, chopping the carrots. I mean, it's all those sensory things that I think really count towards being a more mindful eater. And then that's connected to our weight and our, our bodies and our health. For sure.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about organizing our kitchens, being organized in our kitchens then for eating better. So take us on a trip to the grocery store with you. We want to cook. We want to prepare meals ourselves, but we also are mindful of the time that we don't have because we have children and we have activities and things like that. So we need to be able to make some quick meals, but good meals that we feel good about. So we're going to the grocery store with you. Where do you start? Take us through that store with you.
Well, before I even walk into the store, I want to step back like 2 steps, because before you even walk into the store, never go into a grocery store without a list in your hand.
Plan and
a plan and a list. Okay, so 100%. Meal planning is one of the key skills, I think, after the mindfulness and everything. Meal planning is a guarantee to eating healthier. Without a plan, you are lost, right? And I know we've all been there before. We walk into a grocery store I'm just going to grab a few couple things. You walk in, it's 5 o'clock. What am I making for dinner tonight? All right, fine. I'll grab, like some of the chicken and I'll grab these vegetables. And then you have no plan you have no recipe and you have no plan about how to make it. And half the stuff then sits in your refrigerator because you don't have the plan, and you end up throwing a lot of it out. Do not walk into the grocery store without that list in your hand. That will save you right there tons of time. I mean, I don't love being in the grocery store. I feel like sometimes it's my second home. I'm in there like often because this is what I do for my job. So to make it more streamlined and effective, I mean, you could literally get out of the grocery store in 30 minutes with your list if you knew exactly what you were going to be shopping for.
So give us a rundown of how you do your meal planning, assuming that you're doing it for your own family and you have time limits around cooking. So if you're planning for the week, what are you trying to do? How many dinners are you planning? How many breakfasts are you planning?
Well, so, I have been meal planning for years, especially when I first got very serious about losing weight and keeping it off and everything. Mm-hmm. Meal planning became even more important then. So I've been going through years and years of doing this with my 3 kids living in the house. Now my kids are flown and grown and they live on their own. So now it's just my husband and myself. The meal plan is still the meal plan, whether you have a whole house full of young kids or it's just you and your husband or it's just you alone. Yeah. What you want to do with planning meals is to have some kind of a goal. I mean, and so if it's you want your whole family to eat healthier, that just helps you again, like be more mindful and aware. Does that mean you're going to make sure that every dinner has a vegetable, on the plate? Does that mean that you're going to have 3 meatless meals that week? And, so you want to take some time and think about what your goals are for the meal plan. Mm-hmm. So for me, for example, like with my husband and myself, I want to make sure that 2 times a week I am eating some kind of seafood because seafood's really good for you and healthy. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely want to make sure I have like a salmon and maybe we're having shrimp. That goes into my meal plan. I want to make sure that at least 2 times a week I'm eating something like plant-based proteins like beans or tofu or something similar. So that's part of my meal plan. And that's how I start to plan out my meals is by the protein that I'm going to be putting on my plate. Now, I'm at a point where I don't really plan out my breakfasts and my lunches because I'm usually, and I want to just pause for a second too. This is not to complicate things or to make things to waste your time. This meal planning, it takes a little time at the beginning, and you will thank yourself all week long for having that plan in place because it's going to be Wednesday night and you're going to say, oh, what's for dinner? And like, you know what? I already know what's for dinner because I have it on my plan. Right. I've already grocery shopped for it. The food's in my refrigerator and I know exactly what we're having tonight. And it takes a lot of stress out of what am I having for dinner? What's for dinner tonight? My meal planning is not the same as your meal planning, right? It might not be. I mean, for example, my dinners almost always become next day's lunch because I'm busy working and I do not want to take even a moment to have to get in my kitchen, prepare a something, and we're fine with leftovers. Some people aren't fine with leftovers and that's okay too, right? So whatever, works for you and makes it easier, right? This is about ease, but it also is about, the more that you are planning, the more you have an opportunity to be healthier, making healthier meals. Now, also, if every Friday is like pizza night, for you, that's okay too. Put that in the meal plan. Then that's a night that you're not cooking, and that's okay.
How should we be maneuvering through a grocery store?
So, grocery stores are, notorious for the middle aisles are the ones that are the worst, are filled with all the junk and the highly processed foods. But that was used to be the mantra like a couple of years ago, like just shop the perimeter of the grocery store because that's where all the best, and that still does apply. But grocery stores and food marketers have gotten very smart. And a lot of the junk can kind of sit around the perimeter too. So you just have to be very careful about what you're grabbing. There's a ton of food marketing words like all natural, 100%. Like when you see food labels that are screaming with bells and whistles and like kind of like saying like buy me, like that's a red flag. You go into the produce section, the oranges and apples aren't like waving their hands at you to like,
all natural.
Right? Yeah. I mean, right. They don't have any food marketing labels on them. They're just like, hi, here we are. And so, shop the perimeter. I mean, I think you get into those middle aisles and that's just full of like the convenience and the junk. But, even you go into Whole Foods and stuff and like, more natural stores, and they can be filled with a lot of that junky stuff too. So you have to just be mindful. Anything that's, ingredients, labels that have more ingredients than you can sit there and even read, ingredients that you can't pronounce, those are all red flags to what you should just stay away from.
A lot of people want to take advantage of the big club stores to buy food for the week. So maybe they only have to go shopping once a week. But tell me what your feeling is about that. Is it doable to have produce for a week for a family of 4 sitting in your fridge?
I think that it is. I mean, because I had a family of 5 and, and I could go to the grocery store once and then maybe walk into the grocery store again just to grab something that was more perishable like fish, and I could, but that takes a decent amount of planning, right? Of what exactly you're going to like use the more perishable things at the beginning of the week. And, there's certainly fruits and vegetables that can sit out on your counter for weeks, winter squashes, onions, garlic. I mean, those will last weeks. So you just have to be, I think that just takes this like kind of next level planning. But, so if you're up for that challenge, that's great. But I think the thing to avoid is walking into the grocery store every single night at 5:00. Like, what am I making for dinner tonight? I mean, I can't think of anything more stressful than that. So I think if it happens to be you go in twice a week, but again, you're going in with that list in your hand. You have a plan.
Right.
You know exactly what you're just going in, grabbing, and you're walking out. And so that's the key.
And then in the kitchen, do you have recommendations about how we should be managing our kitchens, organizing our kitchens to make it more conducive for us making these great meals on weekends?
I like to think of my kitchen as sort of like my personal assistant. I mean, it's like my right-hand man. The very first thing I tell my clients is to go into your kitchens, and I do something called a crowding out and adding in. I mean, like we want to crowd out any of the undesirable things, like, I mean, and starting with equipment, I mean, get rid of stuff that you don't ever use. If you have an air fryer and you never use it, donate it. Right? I mean, just give this stuff away. Like, don't let it clutter your cabinet, your counter. And on the other hand, if there's something like, for me, for example, I have my Vitamix blender and my food processor get front and center attention on my counter because I use them a lot. I don't want to have to then dig them out of my closet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So those things sit prominently on my counter. My container with all my mixing spoons and stuff, that's right there. Anything that's just more convenient. So I would say get rid of stuff that you don't use and then add in. I mean, another great example is I have probably 12 sets of measuring spoons, measuring cups, things like that mixing bowls. I have a lot of those, sheet pans. I don't want to spend the time hand washing the measuring spoons every time I want to, like, if I'm using a couple of them or a couple of times in a recipe. So that, so why not have a lot of those things that you use frequently in your kitchen. So I think
that's the crux of it. That I can buy 5 sets of measuring spoons if I have space to store them, and if I'm
yes,
actually using them frequently, then it makes sense to.
yes,
And
I'm
making
not
a
saying
choice, right? I'm making a choice
yeah,
to find space to keep those.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, pots and pans, a good set of pots and pans, a good sharp kitchen knife, a cutting board. I mean, you want to be prepared, right? You want to be ready to do your cooking, and make it
To
as easy
feel
as
like a chef
possible.
in my own kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, right,
To
exactly.
make it fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and then same goes for the food. You want to, clean out all those expired spices, all that, like, you probably have food that maybe you bought for the last holidays that now will sit in your
Right.
cabinet for a year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
so I'd say like once a season, I go through my cabinets and I just purge lots of things get lost in the back of your pantry cabinets. And yeah, I just did that the other day. I mean, I just went through, the whole thing and just to reorganize. And I think it kind of just gives you some peace of mind. And
Makes you
then you
feel
can see,
good.
yes,
Yeah.
it does make you feel good. And it just makes you feel like you can then, maybe even generate ideas. I mean, I have, I found a bag of farro in the back of my cabinet. I'm like, oh, great. I will use that tonight for dinner, like just things like that. So I think like, crowding out, getting rid of a lot of stuff and then adding back in any like pantry items that you use frequently, extra virgin olive oil, sesame oil, like vinegars. I mean, if you use these things frequently, definitely have them on hand.
I like that. Personal assistant. And so as you planned for, and especially when your kids were at home, as you were planning for your family, not for your business, but for your family for the week, or what things would you buy to keep as staples? Give me an example of some things that you guys would use often versus things that you would, other than produce, that you would buy weekly, for example.
I definitely, in my pantry right now, I mean, I could tell you, I always have a can or two of diced tomatoes. I have some tomato paste. I have canned beans because I have tortillas sitting in my freezer. I'm just thinking like off the top of my head, I could make with the things just in my pantry, in my freezer. Like if I had just had like absolutely no plan for like that night or like whatever my plan went, or, planning is not perfect science. Like it can go awry sometimes. So every once in a while, like maybe I get home later than I thought, I could probably go into my kitchen right now and make some kind of a Mexican meal with a can of black beans, some diced tomatoes. I have cheddar cheese, tortillas in my freezer, frozen kale, frozen greens, and I could create, probably an okay quesadilla, like with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are things, I mean, always in my pantry are oils, extra virgin olive oil I cook with frequently. That's the best oil. I have sesame seed oil for Asian dishes. And then I'll have like a neutral oil, like canola oil. Those are my 3 oils. I have a variety of vinegars. I have some other condiments that I might use frequently, like mustards or soy sauce, I always have those things on hand. Always, because that just ensures that I can go into my kitchen and make a meal.
Yeah.
Might not be perfect, right? But it's gonna be healthy and fine.
Yeah. Love it. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
You said you had something that you wanted to offer to listeners.
I do. I've got a healthy kitchen guide, a setup guide that I would love to give to my listeners, and I will send you the link for that, and then maybe you could put that in the show notes, and they can grab that. So that kind of covers a lot of what we were talking about today about like just getting into your kitchen and what to add in and to take out, and to what you want to stock your pantry with, and a couple examples of quick meals that you could make with things in your pantry. And so I will send you that link, and that would be great if you could put it in the show notes.
Wow. Thank you, Heather. That's fantastic. And thank
Sure.
you for coming on the show today. This has been a lot of fun and really,
Yeah.
really good information.
Great. No, I love talking about meal planning and cooking and getting your kitchen set up, because it really is the key to healthy eating and feeling that like reduction in stress, right? We don't want this to be a drag. We want it to be fun.
For sure. So after we finished this recording, I went to my own cabinets and made a note of what staples I have there. And now I always keep canned beans in my kitchen and tortillas in the freezer. Really good ideas. You'll find the link to Heather's guide in the show notes. So please go there and download that. And all her info is in the show notes too. And do listen to an episode of Real Food Stories, okay? I hope you enjoy your week, and I'll see you on the next episode.